You'd think you know American history. Prepare to have your understanding of the Founding Fathers completely rewritten. This video dives deep into the shadows before the Declaration of Independence, uncovering the pivotal figures whose often overlooked contributions were absolutely essential to the revolution. Get ready to meet the true unsung architects of America. Most folks associate the birth of America with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. On July 4, 1776, a group of brave souls led by Thomas Jefferson put pen to paper, declaring the 13 colonies as free and independent states. It's a monumental moment, a defining chapter in our history books. But here's the twist. What if I told you that the story of America didn't start with a bang on July 4, 1776? Long before the fireworks and famous signatures, extraordinary individuals were laying the groundwork for a nation. In this video, we're going back to the roots of our nation to highlight the unsung heroes, the quiet revolutionaries whose efforts laid the groundwork for the American dream. They dared to challenge the status quo, to question the authority of a mighty empire. Their actions, though often overlooked, were the stepping stones that led to the birth of a new nation. So let us take a journey back in time and shine a light on the forgotten faces that shaped the destiny of a nation. First, let's talk about the fiery orator James Otis Jr. He was one of the first to sound the alarm, warning the colonies about the dangers of British control and the importance of self-governance. In the 1760s, as the British began to tighten their grip on the colonies, Otis took a stand. His famous argument that the colonies should have no taxation without representation became a rallying cry for the people. Imagine yourself in the crowd, listening to his powerful words echoing in the courtroom. It was a moment that planted the seeds of rebellion, setting the stage for the events that would unfold. But the story doesn't end there. In the midst of this growing tension, a series of lesser-known events were unfolding that would play a pivotal role in shaping the colony's path to independence. The real story of America's beginnings takes us beyond the iconic moment of the Declaration of Independence. And it all starts with a simple, powerful word: ideas. Let's dive deeper into those early days. Picture the year 1765. The British Parliament has just passed the Stamp Act, which imposes a tax on all printed materials in the colonies. It's a move that angers the colonists, who feel they are being unjustly taxed without having any voice in Parliament. Enter the Stamp Act riots, a series of protests that erupted throughout the colonies. Colonists refused to pay the tax, boycotted British goods, and even organized protests and demonstrations. It was a show of unity and defiance that sent shockwaves across the empire. And while the Stamp Act was eventually repealed, its impact was far-reaching. It marked a turning point in the relationship between the colonies and Britain, igniting a spirit of resistance that would only grow stronger with time. And amidst this unrest, another powerful force was emerging: the printed word. Pamphlets and newspapers became the weapons of choice for the revolutionaries. They spread like wildfire, carrying messages of discontent, unity, and calls to action from one town to the next. One particular pamphlet, Thomas Paine's Common Sense, would later become a cornerstone of the revolution. But these early writings laid the groundwork for what was to come. But hold on a second. We can't talk about the revolution without acknowledging the significant contributions of women. They might not have been at the forefront of history books, but their roles were crucial. Women actively participated in these early protests, both as organizers and participants. They boycotted British goods, signed petitions, and even wrote articles and pamphlets. Their voices, though often overlooked, were integral to the growing movement for independence. Now let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. As the 1760s gave way to the 1770s, a sense of unity began to take shape among the colonies. It wasn't a given. After all, each colony had its own unique identity and interests. But the growing threat of British oppression forged a sense of collective purpose, and at the heart of this unity were the committees of correspondence. These committees were informal networks of communication that linked the colonies together. They were the precursors to the Continental Congress, serving as the foundation for organized colonial resistance. Through these committees, news of British policies and actions spread like wildfire, and this shared awareness was a catalyst for unity. It allowed the colonies to present a united front, making it clear that they would no longer tolerate British tyranny. Imagine attending a meeting of the Committee of Correspondence. The air is thick with anticipation as delegates from different colonies share news of British oppression. It was a secret network, shrouded in secrecy, discussing strategies for resistance and plotting against the Empire. These unsung heroes were the architects of the American Revolution. As the American Revolution heated up, the need for military preparedness became increasingly apparent. Entered the local militias, groups of ordinary men who came together to defend their communities from potential attacks. Far from being a well-trained army, these militias were made up of farmers, shopkeepers and artisans, but they were united by a common purpose, a desire to protect their way of life and resist British rule. It was these militias that truly stood on the front lines of the revolution. Members of these militias spent hours upon hours drilling and training. They prepared defenses, stockpiled weapons, and formed networks to quickly respond to any threat. These men weren't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for their families, their communities, and the future of the nation. And now let us fast forward to the pivotal moment at Lexington and Concord in April 1775. It is a day that will echo through history. As British troops march toward Concord to seize colonial weapons, they are met with resistance from the local militia. And that's when everything changes. The shots heard round the world are fired, marking the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. But those shots weren't random. They were the culmination of years of simmering discontent, growing unity and military preparation. And while the battles at Lexington and Concord might seem like a sudden eruption of conflict, they were the result of the efforts of countless individuals who had been laying the groundwork for years. At the core of this revolution were the ideas championed by Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke. Locke's theories on natural rights, the social contract and government by consent profoundly influenced colonial thought. His ideas provided the philosophical backbone for the revolution, serving as a justification for the colonies to break away from British rule. But it was the likes of Samuel Adams and Patrick Henry who took these abstract ideas and applied them to the realities of colonial life. They became the voices of the revolution, articulating the grievances of the people and demanding change. Their speeches and writings resonated with the common folk, inspiring them to take a stand against injustice. Now, let's circle back to those early protests we mentioned. Do you remember the Stamp Act riots and the pamphlets that were circulating? Well, these events and writings played a significant role in shaping the intellectual landscape of the revolution. They exposed the brutality of British oppression and the urgency for change. People began to question the very nature of British authority over the colonies, and this shift in thinking was a crucial step towards independence. By the 1770s, the seeds of discontent had grown into a full-blown movement. The escalating tensions between the colonies and Britain led to events like the Intolerable Acts, which aimed to punish the colonies for their acts of defiance. But instead of breaking the spirit of the colonists, these acts only fueled the fire of resistance. Now, let's shift our focus to the unsung heroes, the everyday people who made this revolution possible. Farmers, shopkeepers, artisans. They might not have been the leaders whose names are etched in stone, but their contributions were equally vital. The revolution was not just a fight for independence, it was a fight for the very soul of America.